most people have something about their body that they don't like. I don't think there's anyone on the planet who doesn't. And so you're going to get naked in front of a person and then you're going to share bodily fluids. I mean, there's a lot of crazy shit going on. And it all has to come together, right? It all has to work.
Right, right. Yes, I think body shame is a huge issue for a lot of people, for women and men, right? Of like, again, exposing yourself, taking a risk, is somebody going to judge what I look like? That is one of the barriers that couples face, especially as bodies change as we get older, right? There's a lot of pressure. Stay 120 pounds for women, which is really, really hard when you've had a couple of children and you've gone through menopause and your hormones change and belly fat shows up. And the same thing with guys, right? There's a
Yeah.
lot of pressure for that. And that doesn't make anybody feel good. And again, it's another reason why people like don't expose themselves and maybe they stop having sex.
Welcome to another episode of the What If You Could podcast. I'm your host, Gary Scott, and today my guest is Zanet Pailet. Hello, Zanet.
Gary, how are you this afternoon?
Was there a hard T at the end of that? Is it Paulette?
Paylette, Sinead Paylette, but it's okay.
I was so into that, just saying it
I know
like
it should be
wrong.
though. It should, honestly. It just got very Americanized. It's a French name that they Americanized. Like I have no control over that.
One of my favorite jokes is about a croissant, but I'm not going to go tell it right now because it's not proper. Um, There's no T in croissant. So guys, today's guest is Zanet Pailet, a nationally recognized sex and intimacy coach, best-selling author of an Orgasmic Life, Living an Orgasmic Life, and the Sex and Intimacy Repair Kit, Sex and Intimacy Repair Kit. I didn't know you could repair that, but we're going to find out how. And the founder of Passionate Intimacy Retreats, where she has led over 100 couples on intimacy retreats. So there's so much more to this story. I can't wait to get into it, so I don't want to waste any more time. But we are the What If You Could podcast. I promise I'll shut up in a sec. So, Zane, what is your what if you could?
Yeah, thanks, Gary. I love that question. So my what if you could is what if you could, or what if I could prevent couples from being in sexless marriages, like the whole universe of couples from being in sexless marriages?
When some people meet, right, there's all that hot passion and they can't keep their hands off each other and then it just goes over. But then there was myself and my first wife who passed away. She was a virgin when we met. She was 18, I was 21, and she did not want to, she wanted to get married as a virgin. Like, all right, can we get married tomorrow? So it was 2 years. We were together 2 years. So we didn't
Mhm.
have that crazy, passionate, hands all over ourselves vibe. But I was only 21. I didn't know what I was doing. She was 18. She didn't know. So there's different parts of that, right? Sometimes you get together and you're all over each other and then it fades, and then other people don't have a clue and then they kind of have to build it. Mm. So when do you step in? When do people come to you and go, we're hurting here?
When did you say? I've
Yeah.
been doing this work for 15 years. So I myself came out of a 26-year sexless marriage. I do have two children, five grandchildren, so it's not like we never had sex, but when you define sexless marriage, a sexless relationship, it's sex less than 10 times a year. I think if we had sex 20 times in 26 years, that might have been a lot. Just to just to give you a perspective. And most of it was in the first couple of years of marriage. Um, so I'm very, very aware of what this feels like in a relationship and how painful it is, emotionally painful it is, and how much distance it creates. And my passion once I got out of that marriage and did my own healing work and then jumped into this world because by profession, I'm a lawyer, healthcare lawyer. I practiced law for not that long a period of time, but then I ran healthcare professional organizations in Washington, D.C., like big national organizations. So I've been in the healthcare field my entire life in some way, shape, or form, whether policy in Washington, D.C., lobbying, or running an organization. Um, I decided that it was time to like really do my own work. And when I did my own work, it became really clear that what I went through was important for me to share with other people and the healing path that is out there, both in terms of sexual healing around my own sexuality, which is why I was in a sexless marriage, um, and then as I've deepened my own work and been on my own journey, I've been really focused on the last 7 years on really helping couples heal their relationships, their challenges around intimacy and lack of sex. Primarily in long term relationships, I would say those are the people who I tend to get, I guess, just because of my own background. And at some level, those are the people that are ready to make the investment because, they're at this like crucial part in their life where we're either going to stay together because now we're empty nesters, but we've grown really distant and we haven't had sex for years, or we're not getting along, right? Or we're gonna separate. And so that's really how a lot of people find me and my company, Passionate Intimacy Retreats, which is really, really focused on helping couples learn how to recreate that emotional connection and safety, and then the sexual intimacy that's been missing for
I
them.
love how you say sex and intimacy
Mhm.
because they really are very different. I mean, aren't they? I mean, when you could be so intimate with someone without the physical act of sex
Yes.
on a daily basis, on an hourly basis, I mean, all day long, and then there's the sex parts. I love how you say the sex and intimacy repair kit. Why do you put sex first and intimacy second?
Probably just because it sells more books.
Ah, the
It
editors.
just
It's always
rolls
the
off the
editors.
tongue. Sex and I mean, we always call yeah, it's a great question, but sex and intimacy, they go together. And they're very, very integrally related. And yes, you can definitely have intimacy without sex, for sure. But I think it's really hard to have a good sex life without the intimacy piece. And
Yeah,
that's why they're actually very interconnected to each other. I think it's really important. If you want to have a good sexual relationship with somebody, you need to be able to establish that intimacy and that emotional safety and connection.
I was my first marriage, we were very intimate. We were very lovey, touchy. We were very although we didn't have a lot of time for sex, it didn't start with the fire and then it took us a while to
Mhm.
find our way. We had no clue what the hell we were doing. And then the kids came right away and the business and all that stuff. But there was one thing that we always had. It was a very loving, intimate, connected. So as things settled down, we were able to work our way into, the sex part,
Mhm.
because we kept the intimacy there. But it's crazy how it fizzles, right? Why does it fizzle like that? How does that go away, that heat?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of reasons why the initial heat, which you said you didn't even experience really, um, goes fades, right? And part of it is because it's biological, right? When you meet somebody, there is this new relationship energy. Literally, dopamine is flooding your system. And that dopamine is Mother Nature's way of wanting to ensure that procreation continues to happen. It's a very biological thing. Helen Fisher writes all about it in her book. There's lots of research and studies on that. Um, and but that fades. I mean, it's just like it's a temporary period of time. It's 6 months to 12 to 18 months at the outset, because you can't have that much dopamine in your system. I don't know why that it fades, but it does. biologically. And then you're in a new stage of your relation, which I call like that's when the real relationship actually begins. Because you no longer have that dopamine that is overriding, let's say you've had trauma, that dopamine overrides the trauma that you've had. And then all of a sudden you realize 18 months into the relationship, your sexual trauma that you thought was repaired from this particular relationship is actually right back there. And you know, the real relationship begins, right? Like then like stress comes into your life and like what happened with you, Gary, kids come into your life maybe sooner than you wanted because you wanted more time to connect, but that didn't happen. Who knows? Right. And then work comes back into your life and stress and like all of the stuff where the connection begins. I guess I would say what I see in most couples is that the relationship takes a back seat to everything else that's happening, and you don't have that dopamine no longer flooding your system to keep that energy up. Right. And I think a lot of couples believe falsely that this is going to take care of itself. The relationship is going to be fine, or sex life is going to continue to be fine. And very often, sometimes it is, but very often it's not. It no longer becomes a priority. And when it's not a priority, other things take its place. And then things start getting weird because it's like, no, no, we haven't had sex for like 12 months, right? And now, like, it feels awkward. Or maybe you've, initiated and you've been rejected a lot, right? Like all of those feelings that haven't probably been expressed but are sitting under the carpet are there, and it's easier just to avoid it because you don't want to create drama and conflict in the relationship, right? So I think that's like
Yeah.
that's a very common path that that we see. So the sexual intimacy starts to fade, and then the emotional intimacy starts to feel more distant because there's a disconnect around the sex. That's one avenue. And the other avenue is like you're having conflict in the relationship, like we do. I mean, and that's normal, right? Like in the context of a romantic relationship, you are going to hurt each other over and over and over again. That is just what we do. And it's natural and it's normal, right? But if you don't know how to repair it, if you don't know how to deal with it, then once again, you avoid the conflict, push it under the rug, or it starts getting ugly, right? And there's more fireworks, not the good kind. And you start, being criticizing each other, and complaining about each other and being mean to each other and ignoring. I mean, I could go on and on, manipulating each other, all the things that we do to try to hide the pain that we're actually really feeling because we don't feel safe enough to express it to our partner. And that also, that distance, that emotional disconnection creates a sexual disconnection because when you're pissed off at your partner, do you want to have sex with them? For most couples, the answer is no. There are a few couples, there are a handful in which they do repair through sex. That's like a whole unusual but different dynamic, but it is not at all the norm.
Yeah. You said the S word, and it doesn't
Which
have to
one?
do with stress.
Stress.
Right, it doesn't have to do with sex, but this you
Mm-mm.
said the stress word, and that's why we need the sex and intimacy repair kit so we can repair some. But it's interesting because sex is one of the best stress relievers, but we avoid sex when we're feeling stressed. It's like, well, that's
Right.
bizarre. We both are stressed. Well, if we, get together and are intimate, we could relieve this burden of this crazy stress. But instead, we use that excuse not to have sex, which just exacerbates more stress and
Yeah, I
creates this
mean,
this this
it's
thing.
really it's a nervous system issue. When you're stressed out, your nervous system is just on high levels of activation, right? You're anxious, and in order to get into more intimate space, you have to be able to like come down, come off of it. And for a lot of people, they don't know how. They can't get out of that high level of activation piece in their nervous system to come back into what would be potentially, and I say potentially, because for a lot of couples, there's drama in sex as well, which is part of the reason why they're stressed out in the first place.
Well, you talked about fighting. Some people love makeup sex.
Right. Well, that's
And
what I was saying. There's a small percentage of people that love makeup sex.
yeah, and with my new wife, I have recently remarried. I mean, I laugh because she had a past husband that they fought, and I didn't fight with my first wife, and I'm certainly not going to fight with my second wife. So I said, this kind of sucks. I've never had makeup sex. Maybe we should get in an argument.
And try it.
Try out some makeup sex, see if it's what everybody talks about. It's supposed to be hotter, but there's another S word, not sex or stress that you brought up, but is safety.
Mm-hmm,
Safety. I mean, it's
hmm
really, if you've come from, like we all do, we all have some wounds or we have some grief or we have
hmm
some things in our past where we
Yeah.
haven't felt safe. It's
hmm
really tough to let down those barriers. I mean, you might be having sex with a person, but that doesn't mean you're all there enjoying it, right?
That's very true. So that's, a huge part of, I was just on interestingly, I was just on a podcast like an hour ago. And she asked me a really interesting question, which was like, what does emotional safety feel like in the body? And it's a hard question to answer, but you know, what I just can say is that emotional safety is like the critical component of intimacy. You can't be intimate with somebody, not sexually intimate in any level with them, right? If you can't trust that their yes is their yes and their no is their no, and if you don't feel like you can actually like expose yourself and take a risk with them, and that you're not going to by talking about your feelings, what's bothering you, how they hurt you, right? Without being concerned that you're going to end up being dismissed, in your feelings are going to be invalidated, that maybe if you say something that'll be manipulated, it'll be used against you later, right? Or you'll be shamed. I mean, there's a million ways in which somebody can be defensive, which causes pain to you, if you try to actually be intimate with them and vulnerable with them. And emotional safety makes you feel like you can, like it's okay, right? And the analogy I used is that it's really like an attunement issue, right? So if you're two different tuning forks and you're playing on the same note, you're both a D sharp, it's a beautiful between the two of you, right? There's um you're on the same vibrational level, the same note, the same resonance. But if one is an F sharp and one is like a D sharp, I'm not a musician, so maybe these sound great together, but I have no idea. I'm just using this as an example. If one is an F sharp and one is a D sharp, there's a lot of dissonance and it doesn't feel good. And that's that feeling of like, my partner and we're on different wavelengths. I don't feel connected to them. I feel this distance between the two of us, an unspoken distance, right? And it's a feeling, it's a sense that we have of, oh, whoa, something's going on. I'm not
Well, we're just all balls of energy. I think of it as magnets. There's
yes, a hundred
magnets. You
percent.
turn them one way and they just go bam, and you turn them the other way and they shoot away from
Totally.
each other. And I think
Totally.
I know a lot of people that make me feel both ways. Some of them make me just go, "I love you, man," and some people are like, "Dude, I am out of here. Your energy is freaking horrible," right? And so
Totally.
it's the
Totally.
same thing with couples. And the interesting thing is, in the initial heat of it, you guys both might be horny, haven't dated a while. You get together, you hit it off, you have some drinks. Next thing you know, you're having sex for a couple of weeks. And then one day you're like, I don't even like this person. And the sex isn't that great either,
Mhm.
but we're
Mhm.
still having it. Now I've got to exit this thing.
Mhm.
And I know a lot of girlfriends, older like me, and they just love one night stands. They're like, I have
Mhm.
zero interest in intimacy. I just need to need what I do
Totally.
and see you later. And I'm like, right on,
Yeah, and that's
right?
what a one-night stand is great for, right? Like, and
Yeah.
there are a lot of people, and often what I see when I hear those stories depending upon where they are in their personal growth, right? Is like it could be an indication of like I intimacy is too scary for me. It's easier, right? I mean, people say that all the time. In the beginning, there was no problem. I could be totally sexually expressed. I was totally open. It was great. And then when we started getting serious, oh, all of the sudden, like all of my shame showed up because I had to actually be like intimate with this person. And then the repercussions, if something didn't go wrong, the stakes become so much higher, right? And I think
All
that's
of a
part
sudden
of
all of a sudden, we're worried about judgment, right? When we were hot and
Yes,
heavy getting started, there wasn't any judgment. It's like, "Woo-hoo, we're
exactly.
doing everything." And now that you're starting to find intimacy, it's not just sex and it's looking towards a relationship, you're like, "Ooh, I can't believe I did that." And I don't
Mhm.
wanna now do that next thing that I wanted to do because how are they gonna feel about that? Are they gonna
Exactly.
judge me? Do they want their mother of their children doing this? It's like,
Exactly.
"Yes,
Exactly.
yes, we do want you doing that, mother." Yeah, so judgment's a really tough thing too. I mean, you talk about judgment, and I mean, let's
Yes.
face it, most people have something about their body that they don't like.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anyone on the planet who doesn't. And so you're going to get naked in front of a person, and then you're going to share bodily fluids. I mean, there's a lot of crazy shit going on,
Yeah.
and it all has to come together, right? It all has to work.
Right. Right. Yes, I think body shame is a huge issue for a lot of people, for women and men, right? Of like, again, exposing yourself, taking a risk, is somebody going to judge what I look like? That is one of the barriers that, couples face, especially as bodies change as we get older, right? There's a lot of pressure to stay 120 pounds for women. It's really, really hard, when you've had a couple of children and you've gone through menopause and your hormones change and belly fat shows up. And the same thing with guys, right? There's a
Yeah.
lot of pressure for that. And that doesn't make anybody feel good. And again, it's another reason why people like don't expose themselves and maybe they stop having
Yeah.
sex because they're
Well,
feeling bad.
I'm just gonna stay fat, dumb, and happy. I really don't care what my wife thinks about it. But you hit on something I was gonna ask you about, and since you mentioned the M word now, um,
Menopause. Mhm.
menopause, because
Mm,
I'm 63,
mhm,
my wife is 56.
mhm,
She literally hit menopause the day we got married.
mhm,
Um,
mhm,
and so now she's been in menopause our whole marriage.
mm.
Just that day. Um, I'm just picking on her. But menopause, when I was dating,
Mhm,
after my first wife passed and I started dating down the road 6, 7 years later, whatever, and I dated a couple of gals, and some of my female friends would say, "Well, are you staying in your lane?" Like, "What does that mean, staying in my lane?" I said, "Well, you dating what age range are you
mhm,
dating?" And I'm like,
mhm,
"Well, I'm 50 something. I'm gonna date chicks my age." Because most guys who lose their first wife just start dating younger girls. I'm like, what the hell am I gonna do with the younger? So most of the gals I dated were in menopause or
mhm,
had
mhm,
gone through it or
mhm,
whatever. It's a really tough thing
mhm,
for
mhm,
women, isn't it?
mhm. Yes. Um, yeah, I mean, it really affects women's bodies. Different women will be impacted differently, right? Just to kind of depending on how sensitive they are to changes in their hormones. And I think we know a lot more about menopause and actually perimenopause than we did, even 10 years ago, right? There's just really been a lot more research. We know there's like something like 70 different symptoms that women can experience during perimenopause and menopause. And it is definitely, it can definitely be a challenge and impact your sex life. And I think the good news is that because we're so much more aware and have so much more research under our belts, there's so many more ways to treat it now than there used to be, right? So I'm a big advocate for hormone replacement therapy, which is I think huge for a lot of women, not just for their sex drive, but for their bones and for dementia and for their heart and a lot of other conditions that women experience who really need our hormones, who really need our estrogen and our testosterone. It's really a challenge that we don't have that. Um, and, I think, as I said, like different women, experience it differently and how it impacts them. Some women will immediately see a change in their libido, that may be from menopause, but could be from other reasons as well. So it's tricky because I've seen a lot of women in menopause or even perimenopause who are in new relationships. And so I'm curious about your experience, who are in new relationships and really turned on because again, the new relationship energy, the dopamine is actually still there and hitting them. Um, and I've seen women in long-term relationships who use menopause as an excuse to not have sex because they never liked sex in the beginning anyway, either with their existing partner, right? Or they were just like, yeah, sex wasn't that great for me. And they don't have any belief or understanding that it could actually be better with a different partner. Let's say they're out in the world and dating. So, that's been my own I feel like there's some myths around menopause that, society has, propagated and a lot of women have, basically leaned into, and I don't know that they're helpful for people. That's
I,
my own
I've
opinion about it.
discovered, and I'm no sex expert like you are, um, although I'm going to try to practice as much as I can once we get off this podcast. I've discovered that the number one secret for helping women with menopause is communication.
Mhm,
I have found that when I was dating, I never really thought about menopause at all with women that even if they were experiencing it because it was new and we were dating and the sex was great. They never brought it up and they didn't seem to have any issues or something. My current wife though, since we're married, right? Um, it's a different scenario and I've realized, you know, communication is so important.
mhm.
You need to explain to me, or maybe I should rephrase it. It would be helpful if you would explain to me what is happening, um, how I can help you, what you're feeling, what you're
Mhm,
going through, how we can make it better,
mhm,
or what we need to completely avoid. I think don't keep it to yourself. Don't hide that, oh, I've got this dryness issue and I'll just force my way through it. I'll just try to get through it or well, you know what I mean? Whatever the situation is, but I think just talking to your spouse about what's happening to your body and how you together you guys can work through it.
yeah. you know, let's be honest, like communication is the cornerstone of every good relationship, right? So,
Yeah.
communication is the key to more intimacy. Communication is the key to a better sex life. And, communicating with a partner about what they're experiencing on a day to day level when they're going through menopause, because it changes on a second to second level, is really, important. And yes, of course, being willing to like make adjustments as to how we interact with each other, what body parts may or may not be on or off the table. I mean, this is kind of true for couples as they age as well, right? I just read an article in the New York Times where Joan Price was featured, and she actually endorsed my book, which I really appreciated. But she's like owns the market on older senior sex is what she calls it. Yeah, I think her book, I think, is called Senior Sex. And she was talking about she and her partner, she's like in her 80s and they're both in their 80s. And like whenever they have sex, they like talk about like what body parts are on the table, what body parts are off the table, right? And so that communication is really important, but that continues to happen because we get sick, stuff happens, right? Like, for men as well, right? They have prostate cancer and all of a sudden they're not functioning the way they used to function, or we age and we don't function as well as we used to function. So having a lot of conversation and kindness and compassion and understanding, like, yeah, bodies do weird things, and often we don't have a lot of control over it. But what can we do? What would feel good? What does work for you today? What does work for us today? Right? Without any expectation that everything has to be like penis and vagina sex, which is like this ridiculous goal that society has told us that's what sex is. And I try really hard to help people understand that's not what sex is. Sex is anything that creates some sort of eroticism between the two of you, even if you're just sexting with each other. Right.
Yeah. No, getting old, which I have, which has been interesting.
Mhm.
Um, Living an orgasmic life.
Mm.
Um, your book, Living an Orgasmic Life.
Yeah, that's my first book. Mhm.
Yeah. What percentage of women do not normally, is there a statistic on what percentage of women just don't normally orgasm
So,
during?
so living an orgasmic life is a little bit of I mean, it is about a sexual awakening, but living an orgasmic life really, the concept of that is really just and every aspect of your life be orgasmic, including your sex life, and what does that actually entail of you being in connected to your body, connected to your own sexual energy so that you can attract into your life that which you want to attract into your life. So I just want to be clear. Not saying we don't talk about orgasms in the book. I do, but it's a larger concept. But in terms of what percentage of women don't actually have orgasms, I don't know if I know what that number is. I think there's a fair percentage of women that fake it, because again, it becomes very performative for them, and they're not actually being touched the way they want to be touched. They're being rushed into sex, so they're not really aroused enough to have an orgasm, but they just want to get it over. And I'm sure there is some percentage there. I don't know what it is. So I don't know that answer to the question, but I think the better answer is like everyone is capable of having an orgasm. It's very, very rare that somebody can't actually have some kind of orgasm, and there's lots of different times. There are different types that you can have as well. And so sometimes there's too much pressure on one type and there's not enough exploration around another type. So really like understanding your body, what your arousal pattern is, what you need to actually get to orgasm, which, happens at the intersection of very high arousal, but also very high relaxation. And generally speaking, it's the relaxation piece that could be missing because you're being rushed into it, either because you feel like you need to perform, you want to get it over with, or you just don't have even awareness as a woman yourself as to what it is that you actually need, how much stimulation you need to get to that place. Like, most women really need to be touched, kissed, whatever, foreplay for like 20 to 30 minutes before they're really ready for an orgasm. And that's not how it's portrayed in the movies or on porn or not talked about that way. And it's very misleading. And then women feel like, oh my God, like I'm taking too much time, and they feel guilty, right? And so then they fake it. And that's
And they get
not at all
lost
an
in
uncommon experience.
they yeah, they get lost in their head, and the guy's three pumps and a shiver and he really doesn't give a shit, so he's out of there. But that's why we have the passionate intimacy retreats.
We do.
Um, we have these retreats, and the place is freaking off the hook, awesome, spectacular. I'm like, dude, this place is so sick. It's beautiful. Excuse me. Oh, I'll have to edit that one out. But the passionate intimacy retreats, I would imagine when you leave that week of being there, which I probably wouldn't leave, I'd probably just stay. Because it looks so freaking awesome. I mean, there's not But most people probably in their entire life will never have that sort of ability to be led through a connection like that. So tell us about the
Mm,
passionate
interesting.
intimacy retreats.
Right. So I have two types of retreats that I offer, and I think you're referring to my group retreat in Costa Rica, because you probably looked at that website and you're like, hell yeah, we're coming.
In more ways than one, sister.
um, so that happens once a year. And I just got back from the one I just held in February, which was amazing. And the one that's going to be held in 2027 is going to be at this gorgeous, gorgeous center in Dominical, which is over on the Pacific coast. It's like the jungle overlooking the Pacific coast. It's absolutely gorgeous. And those are very immersive experiences, like group experiences, where we do this particular retreat is going to be focused on really securing the foundation of the relationship through the emotional intimacy, the emotional communication, the connection, learning like how to repair conflict, like really teaching some really important skills and then moving into more sensuality as well. But it's very immersive. So like we go to this gorgeous river and we do a blue clay ritual where they take this just gorgeous clay from the indigenous people, and we put it on each other's bodies and we do this ritual where we wash away like all of the things that have been caught between the two of us in our relationship, right? And we do a cacao ceremony, a heart opening cacao ceremony, and then we move into a sensual massage experience under the stars. It is a really incredibly fun, immersive, transformative experience for couples. So I love doing that particular retreat. Um, and then, but the Passionate Intimacy Retreats home is in Asheville, North Carolina, which is where I live. And I offer retreats for couples, individual retreats. So one couple and me over a 4 to 5 day period where we really focus individually on what's standing in the way of your relationship and your intimacy and your sex life. And again, it's very experiential and interactive. And it's very powerful experience for couples. And I often see couples that are really having a lot of challenges around their sex life. So they've been in a sexless marriage for a number of years, or they're at the verge of separation, like, we do very, very deep transformative work, and I have a very, very high success rate with getting them over that hump so that when they leave, they're more connected, they're able to talk to each other more openly, and very often, their sex life has improved while they're here at the weekend. So we focus always first on like the foundational aspects, you know, recreating, or maybe for the first time, creating that emotional safety that they're desperately missing in the relationship. That's so powerful. And then we move into more of the sexual intimacy and understanding how you want to be touched. And I teach um, it's very interactive. So I'm teaching like these are different ways to touch each other, and you can focus on that and understand what your arousal pattern is like, what feels like, and look at different sexual styles because there's 6 different sexual styles, and understand like what's your pattern. So it's very informative for people and transformative as well.
Wow,
And
that
also,
would
like, they
be
get to stay in
intense.
this yeah, and they get to stay in this super, super sexy Airbnb with a hot tub and a huge king size bed and sexy art on the wall and a sex swing or yoga swing and a sex chair and it's gorgeous. Yeah. So
All right, well, I'm going there first and then I'm going to Costa Rica. Do I have to bring my wife or can I just go by myself? Because this sounds
definitely have to
awesome.
bring your wife, Gary. I'm sorry about that.
So I would imagine, because I know you say your success rate is very high, but I would imagine people who are willing to submit themselves to this
Mhm.
because you got to be willing to just shed all your skin and go deep, right? I
You
mean, you
do.
can't show up half-assed or something like that. It's too
True.
intense, right?
True.
So I'd imagine you're going to go either one of two ways. You're going to leave there as teenage newlyweds, just back in love again, or you're going to go, "Oh, we're out of here. We're going to divorce because if this can't get us there, nothing's going to get us there, right?" So I'd imagine, but either way, that's a success. Either way, right?
There's a success. And, I just do screen people out. I mean, I do a screening with a couple if they're interested in coming to Asheville, just to make sure I get a sense of where they're at. If they're really, really in high conflict and they hate each other, or the relationship has become toxic, I'm not going to invite them because I don't want to work with that kind of energy. And it's probably, yeah, it's just not something I want to do. I probably could help them, but I don't want to do it. I don't want that
Yeah.
in my world and in my space. But that's not usually the case. Usually, like they're best friends. They love each other. They at least like each other, right? But they've just become like roommates rather than romantic partners.
Yeah.
So, but
It
yeah,
was, uh,
there's some percentage of couples that end up deciding like, yeah, we can't, this isn't going to work for us. And I do work with people afterwards as well, right? Like, we do this intensive retreat, and then for many couples, I'll continue working with them for 3 months or 6 months just to keep moving them forward on their pathway.
well, I love all of this, Janet. I love all of this. You've been amazing. I know you just got a packed day, so I've got to get you out of here. But I did lie earlier because I'm a guy. Guys just lie. Dudes lie. I said we do. I said I had one question, but I actually have two questions. So my last question
Absolutely. Go
before
for
we
it.
get out of here is this. My last question is, if you had a thought or a message or something that really means something to you that from your past or what you're doing now, if there's something you'd like to leave us with that really means something to you,
Mhm.
what would that last thought be?
I have two. The first one is live a life filled with pleasure. Like pleasure is our birthright. And I think it's just really important that we do our best every day to find all the pleasure in life because there's a lot of pain in life. But little acts like this morning, I'm in North Carolina. We've got flowers on the trees and it's snowing. And I just sat and watched the snowflakes. Oh, how gorgeous they were, big flakes, right? Finding the little moments of pleasure in your life, I think are really important. And I think the other piece is, and it's a hard quest, but do whatever you can to learn how to be vulnerable because it will change your life.
Wow, those are two really good ones. Learn to be vulnerable. Man, that is such a powerful, powerful thought, learning to be vulnerable. It could just expose you to so many great things if you could just
Mhm.
let down the mask
Yeah.
a little bit, but also pleasure. When you said that, the first thing that popped into my head was eating the perfect peach. Just eating the
Mm,
perfect peach and the
yeah.
juices running down my arm as I'm
Yeah.
watching birds outside or something, or I'm looking at the
Yeah.
mountains or the ocean and I'm just eating this perfect peach. That does have a little sexual symbolism to it also. But you have been amazing. Everybody, we've been blessed with some time with Zanet Pillay. No, I think it's Zanet.
Janae, Janae,
It's
Janae
they,
Pailet.
they both have a T, but only one of
Well,
the T's
I
is
know, but my name starts with an X. It's very confusing for people.
okay.
Can
So you're
I
gonna have
can
to
I
say it one
say
more time.
it's
Yeah.
Janae Paylet. Can I say one other thing? Because I do have a free gift for
Yes, I was
all of
gonna
your
get to that in one second.
listeners.
I was gonna
Okay,
find all your stuff. But
okay,
real
great.
quick, I just want to do this. So say your name again so I don't screw it up.
Janae Paylet.
Zanet Pailet is a nationally recognized sex and intimacy coach, best-selling author of Living an Orgasmic Life and the Intimacy Repair Kit, and the founder of Passionate Intimacy Retreats. So please, Zanet, tell us where we could find you. Where can we get more of your stuff? Where
Okay.
can we find your books? And if you've got something to offer us, please do.
Yeah. So you can reach out to me, find out about my books. I have a group program that I'm going to be starting in April, an online coaching program for couples, and my retreats at my website, which is Passionate Intimacy Retreats with an S.com, passionateintimacyretreats.com. But I do have a free gift for everybody, and I think that your listeners will really like. Think y'all will really like this. So one of the questions I get asked most frequently is, how do we start the conversation? Things aren't working well. How do we start the conversation? Because it's scary to approach your partner and say, like, hey, I'm feeling really disconnected, or I think our sex life is really bad right now, without being concerned that you're going to get into a big fight and there's going to be a lot of drama. So I created a tool that I'm offering to all of you. It is called the Intimacy Equation Quiz. Um, and you can find it at this website, which is howtoimprovemylovelife.com. Howtoimprovemylovelife.com. So it's this fun little 3-minute quiz that you take, kind of like quizzes that you might take, personality quizzes you might take on Facebook, where you answer some questions and you learn what your intimacy equation is. And there's like 6 different ones. Um, and then my recommendation is, you get an email saying this is what it is, and this is how you interact with the different particular other people, other equations. And then my recommendation is that you go to your partner and you say, "Hey, I took this fun little quiz about my intimacy equation. I'm a blah blah blah, whatever I am. I'm an emotional quiz, emotional type. I'm curious about what yours is. Would you like to take it?" And then they take it. And then you get to have a low stakes conversation about your intimacy equation quiz. And it starts to open up the conversation in a way that does not feel like anybody is being blamed. Because that's the most important thing, right? There's so much blame when relationships start feeling like they're getting challenging. And I wanted to create a way in which you can have this conversation in a blame-free manner. So howtoimprovemylovelife.com.
I love this. We're going to the blame-free zone, and I want to make sure I get this right. It's how to improve
Wow.
mylovelife.com. How to
Correct.
improve mylovelife.com.
Mylovelife.com.
And it's the intimacy equation test, the blame-free zone, like the cone of silence on Get Smart. I love it. I love it. I love it. Janae, you have been amazing. I don't know whether I'm packing for Costa Rica or North Carolina first, but I'm out of here.
So
Been wonderful. You've
thank
been
you.
wonderful. I'm so grateful for your time. This has been so much fun.
Thanks, Gary. Thanks for a great conversation.
You got it, kiddo. All right, everybody. See you soon. Thanks, guys.